Mike and I are so excited to have Glenn Hasek on the phone with us. Glenn is the publisher and the founder and editor of the award-winning Green Lodging News, which our listeners can look at greenlodgingnews.com. He has over 15 years experience in the business. He started this about in 2006. I'm a subscriber, and I love the Green Lodging News. Hey, Glenn, welcome to Green is Good. It's an honor to have you on today. And tell us, why and how did you start this newsletter, and explain what that magic moment was?
Well, I could probably go back to around 1989, which is when I was hired by a trade publication in the lodging industry. And it was shortly thereafter I started writing about environmental issues in the industry, and actually I believe I was one of the first ones to do so. This was way back in 1991, and so it's way before this kind of green craze hit all industries. And then another turning point was actually the day after 9/11, believe it or not. I was laid off from my job the day after 9/11, and was kind of trying to figure out what I should do. So I started thinking about some new career paths, one being public relations consulting, another being freelance writing. And so after a while, I started hatching an idea of a new publication, and I came up with Green Lodging News. It was something that no one else was doing, and it combined my interest in the environment with my professional background in the lodging industry. And I actually launched the publication in July of 2006.
And so when you say the publication, you mean the online publication, correct?
Exactly. It's an electronic publication, and it consists of a website and a weekly newsletter. And the website can be found at www.greenlodgingnews.com.
That's right. And so what kind of stories do you cover, and how has your website evolved, and how has the green lodging industry evolved over these last three and a half years?
Well, my website covers all kinds of different issues. I try to cover breaking news in the industry, and in the green lodging world, that would include new hotel developments, new product introductions.
So give us an example. Give our listeners an example of a new hotel, updates, or a new product introduction. What should our listeners look for on the Green Lodging News?
Well, there are actually a lot of hotels around the country that are adding renewable energy to their platforms. For example, there's a hotel in North Carolina, Greensboro, North Carolina, the Proximity Hotel, which heats most of its water through solar thermal, using the power of the sun to heat its water. There are hotels coming out with other kinds of installations like that, even using wind turbines to generate electricity. And one of the most popular trends in lodging right now is hotel owners and developers pursuing LEED development. And for your listeners who don't understand what LEED is, it's actually a building certification system developed by the U.S. Green Building Council, which is usgbc.org. And it kind of evaluates and measures a building's energy and water efficiency, as well as its indoor air quality. And so that's been a very common theme in what I have been covering. There's been a lot of new hotels that have been pursuing LEED certification.
When you say new hotels, are these small brands, or are these Hilton and Four Seasons and Holiday Inns? Who are you covering in terms of brands, and which ones are really green and which ones are going green? Explain the LEED process with regards to the brands, and then we'll go back to some other new products coming out.
Well, when you're talking about LEED, it tends to involve larger hotels or mid-sized to larger hotels. But going back to your question about what types of properties do I talk about or write about?
Sure.
It's any type of property, from a mom-and-pop bed and breakfast all the way up to the largest hotel in Las Vegas. Actually, every type of property, can do things to green up its operations. Even a 2-room inn.
So do you actually physically go to these hotels and motels and lodges, or does the owners supply you with the information and photos and videos? How does it really work in terms of running your business?
For the most part, I do interviews over the phone and receive information that way, and also by email. I have gone to individual properties to write about them, and I also pick up information while attending conferences and trade shows. One of the challenges of being an entrepreneur, operating and publishing a publication all by myself out of my home, is that there are some limitations in regard to time and resources and going to the actual properties. But it's amazing what you can do just by doing a good interview and taking a good close look at a property's website.
Mike mentioned on our intro today to you about how when he was traveling in hotels recently, he started noticing a trend of towels, signs saying we'll save water if you don't want us to wash your towels every day. Tell us more. Give us 3 or 4 examples of more changes that hotels are making like that to go green internally besides externally that you've explained with energy.
Well, that's just one of the trends travelers probably have been picking up on. I think it's about 75% of all lodging properties now do that. They offer the guest the option of having his or her towels and linens washed, and good for the environment. Most guests are choosing not to do that, so the hotels are saving water and energy as a result. But some of the other things that have been taking place is more properties have been eliminating smoking from the property.
Tell us a couple brands that are doing that.
Well, Marriott specifically has eliminated smoking in all of its U.S. properties, and that involves, as you can imagine, hundreds of properties. Westin is another brand that has done that, and that's a Starwood brand, and a Choice Hotels brand, Comfort Suites, has also done that. But in addition to going non-smoking and having a towel and linen program, what is very common in hotel guest rooms is guest room energy management systems. And sometimes guests don't notice that, but it's actually an infrared motion detector type of system that will tell the hotel operator whether or not there's a guest in the room. And when a guest is not in the room, what it does is automatically kind of turn back the heating and cooling system to save energy. But that's just one other example of what hotels are doing more often, especially with energy prices still rising.
Hey, Glenn, just real quick, a follow-up. I'm interested in what the rationale is behind eliminating smoking on some of these properties. I think I know, but I want to hear your answer. What environmentally, besides the obvious health issues, what else goes along with the reasoning behind a hotel chain becoming a totally non-smoking property?
Well, one of the financial reasons for going 100% non-smoking is, if you think about it, if you go into a room, light up a cigarette, that smoke, kind of becomes a residue that sits not only on the linens, but also the carpet, the walls, the drapery. Just about everything in that room becomes contaminated once someone lights up a cigarette. So for a hotel owner, it's very expensive to eliminate that smell. Sometimes you have to strip the room of just about everything. So it's saving the hotel owner a lot of money. And then there are also some recent studies that indicate that there's something called third-hand smoke, and most people aren't aware of it, but third-hand smoke is actually the chemical residue that ends up sitting on a surface after a room has been smoked in. It's not the second-hand smoke that kind of persists in the air, or obviously first-hand smoke that you're breathing in, but this third-hand smoke has actually been proven to cause health problems as well, especially with those who have asthma or other chemical sensitivities.
Hey, Glenn, we're going to let our advertisers pay for Green is Good, and we're going to have you back on the other side of this commercial break, and we want you to keep educating our listeners to why in the hotel and lodging industry, green is good.
If a little green is good, more is even better. Now, back to Green is Good with John Shigarian and Mike Brady.
Welcome back to Green is Good. Mike, we are so lucky today to have Glenn Hasek on the phone with us. Glenn is the creator, the founder, and the CEO of the GreenLodgingNews.com. Glenn, Mike and I are so excited about your presence on our show today because we've never seen anything like the Green Lodging News on the Internet. Tell us, are you the number one green lodging portal website out there right now in the world?
To my knowledge, I am, and I have searched the Internet all over, especially before I launched Green Lodging News to see if there were any other competitors out there, and I just can't find any, and I kind of separate myself by writing about topics that no one else is writing about. And from a popularity standpoint, I don't know if your readers realize, but Google actually ranks websites by importance, and
Sure.
My website is ranked tied for number one in the lodging industry among trade publication websites.
Congratulations.
Yeah. How many subscribers do you have?
At the moment, I've got a little more than 10,400.
Great.
And that grows every day.
That is wonderful. So, for our listeners, who is supposed to be coming to your website? Is it people who are going to go travel to another city and they want to see what's the greenest hotel to stay in? Or is it owners? Mike and I own a chain of hotels and we want to get them greener because we see that's a trend that's here to stay. Is it Mike and I who want to learn some new techniques and products that we could put into our hotels? Who are your readers? Who are subscribing to the GreenLodgingNews.com?
Well, my readers tend to be those who actually run lodging establishments. As I mentioned earlier, it could be a mom-and-pop type of operator of a bed and breakfast, all the way up to the owner of the MGM Mirage in Las Vegas. But having said that, I know there are people who come to my website who are just, consumers looking for green places to stay. And my website actually has a section called Green Organizations that includes links to places that consumers, leisure travelers would be interested in going. For example, there's a link to a place called EnvironmentallyFriendlyHotels.com, GreenHotels.com, and sites like these include properties that travelers should be aware of, those establishments that are doing good things, good green things, to not only preserve the environment, but to operate more efficiently as well.
Is it safe to say that you've written about all the chains, the Hiltons, the Starwoods, the Four Seasons, the Holiday Inns? Are they all getting involved with the green revolution? And, in your experience about writing about the greening of hotels, what stories stick out? Like, who have you been most excited to write about or interview? Who have you had on, in terms of your experience that you've been so really jazzed about? How's that gone?
Well, to your first question, all the major chains are getting on board to this green lodging movement. Starwood actually has a green brand. It's called Element, and there's a property that opened in Lexington, Massachusetts. There's another one in Texas, and it's a young brand, so travelers are not going to find many of them around the country. But what you're starting to see is some of the other major brands incorporate kind of a green flavor into their brands. And, for example, there's another brand called Nilo, and they tend to run on 100% green power.
How do you spell Nilo?
Yeah, Nylo.
Perfect. So you're seeing this, even Starwood, who owns the Westin brand, and they've stopped the smoking, as you've said, they're even pushing it further by actually opening a total a green brand that stands on its own.
Yeah, and the Element hotels, they tend to focus on energy efficiency. The windows are extra large. They're obviously 100% non-smoking, highly energy efficient and water efficient. The Element Hotel I mentioned in Massachusetts, they actually have a charging station outside the hotel for electric vehicles.
Wow.
And there obviously aren't many electric vehicles out there, but they're getting ready.
And some of the most historical brands, the Holiday Inns, which we all grew up with and love, and Hilton, which is a great brand and a great American iconic brand. What are they doing? Are they involved with this movement, or do they even see it yet?
Yeah, actually, a Holiday Inn is an Intercontinental Hotels brand, and Intercontinental Hotels is very committed to energy conservation and water conservation. In fact, they have an internal web-based tool that all owners and operators of Holiday Inns can access, where they have to upload their monthly energy and water consumption data with the idea that it will help them reduce energy and water consumption in the long run. Hilton has been very committed, and many of their properties are pursuing LEED certification, as I mentioned earlier.
And so, who's been the most exciting interview? How, what stories? Give us your top 3 stories that you've written, and the folks that you've interviewed that said, "Wow, you really feel that your publication and your website has really arrived."
Well, probably one of the first gentlemen I interviewed who really impressed me was a gentleman named Wen-I Chang, and he's of Taiwanese origin, and he has a couple of properties in California, one being the Gaia Napa Valley Hotel, and it was the first hotel in the country to achieve LEED Gold certification. And one of the things that stuck out in my conversation with him is his whole notion that his hotel is a hotel with a heart. And that kind of has stuck with me. I think of green lodging establishments as those with a heart, because it's not only about saving energy, water, etc., but also getting involved in the local community, buying from local business establishments, and just being a good corporate citizen in general.
So he sees it as a real DNA issue.
Right.
And then what are the other interviews that have blown you away and made you real pumped up?
Well, actually, I just did a recent interview with a couple gentlemen who are building a La Quinta Inn and Suites in Memphis, Tennessee. And what really stuck out in that interview was the fact that they were going to be donating 50% of the proceeds from their hotel to a community foundation. So, again, it's truly a hotel with a heart. It's not just thinking about themselves. It's about thinking about how they can help the local community.
So, when we talk about sustainability, Mike and I are always talking about the 3 basic tenets of sustainability, which are people, planet, and profit. So you're saying these people, these entrepreneurs that you get jazzed about in the lodging and hotel industry really get it. They really get the planet, people, and profits mentality.
Right. And in some cases, they actually spend more money than your average business person would spend just to incorporate renewable technologies in their property, and knowing that the return is going to be a lot longer than most business people are willing to accept.
Got it. And so what's the hot topics now? What are you focusing on in terms of technologies and products that hotels are now going to be adopting? And are they marketing this? When are they going to start marketing their greenness as a differentiating factor? Are they doing that on your website? Are they doing that in the mainstream media? How do you see that happening?
Well, some of the more interesting technologies I've come across recently, one, I did an article on kitchen fryer oil recycling. The excess oil you get from frying up French fries or similar items. There was actually a company that came up with a generator that will enable a hotel to generate electricity just from the recycled grease. then there are a number of companies that have developed food composting machines, and with the help of water and a little bit of bacteria, they actually reduce food waste by 90%, and the end result is a very safe liquid that can just go right down the drain. So it's eliminating a lot of the waste that typically would go to a landfill.
Got it. That's wonderful. And are these hotels really marketing this greenness? Are they starting to? Are they using your website? Are they using just mainstream media that we all historically know and love? What's really happening? How are they using this as a marketing tool and a differentiating factor for their clients?
Well, a lot of these hotels are including separate sections on their websites that explain what they're doing to be more environmentally responsible, to be better corporate citizens. There are actually about 20 states now that have green lodging programs, statewide green lodging programs, and these have become marketing tools for the participants.
Got it.
And then there's also a website out there that your listeners should know about. It's called istaygreen.org. It's kind of a social networking tool, meets and orbits type of thing, where not only can travelers make reservations, but can also leave comments about green hotels that they've stayed in.
Interesting. istaygreen.org.
Exactly.
That's a wonderful resource. How's your advertising going? Have over the last 3 years, because of the green revolution just picking up steam, have you seen more and more people, more and more corporate America and the lodging industry advertising on your website?
Yes, I have. In fact, there have been times when it's been even overwhelming, even in this what most would consider a down economy. I haven't seen the recession that most publishing companies have seen. And what I'm seeing also is a lot of small companies, a lot of entrepreneurs kind of emerging in this new green economy. Oftentimes they don't have the budgets to spend on print publications, which can charge, $10,000 for a full page of advertising. So I'm an affordable option for entrepreneurs.
Well, that's amazing. So you're saying in this down economy, you've seen your business go up.
Exactly. In fact, there is a trade show called Green Build, which is the green building show to go to, and it's tends to happen in the fall every year, but it's put on by the U.S. Green Building Council, and that trade show has actually more than doubled over the last couple of years. So the whole idea that green has suffered along with the rest of the economy, it's not true. It's kind of been a recession-proof part of the economy.
Glenn, we're down to the last minute, unfortunately, and you've been an amazing and wonderful guest. Why don't you give us one or two things that you've learned through your research, that environmental lessons that our listeners can implement in their homes?
Yeah, one of the things that your listeners can do is make sure everything is turned off, and that includes lighting especially. If you are going to leave lights on, use compact fluorescents because they're about 3 times more energy efficient than incandescents.
What's your last pearl of wisdom for our listeners?
Unplug it if you can.
Got it. That's wonderful. And unfortunately, our show's about to become unplugged, but we're going to have you back again, Glenn, and Mike and I are so thankful you came on the show. The greenlodgingnews.com, all our listeners should go there and see what hotels are doing to green themselves. Glenn Hasek, you're very inspirational to all of us, and you are living proof that green is good.